What is up, everybody? This is Clay Frost. This is our segment on 10 biggest ways we are wasting our time. We've made it from number 10 all the way down 9876543. Today is number 1. And this is the one that I like personally, like all of the other ones, there's not a specific order to them, but this is the number 1. This is the one I'm most passionate about. This is the one that I love. I love helping people understand this principle, but more importantly, living this principle. And so we'll talk about it. And the number one biggest way that we waste our time is by avoiding reality. It's huge. It's such a big part. It's so enormously big in making sure that we're having an efficient life and living to the ultimate potential that we have is by living our reality. So let's talk about that a little bit. What do I mean? We'll talk about a few ways that you can overcome what happens when we avoid reality, a few ways to recognize when we are avoiding reality, and just one way to see how big of a mistake it is and how big of a time waster it is. So we'll start with time wasters. Why is it such a big time waster? Well, number one is reality doesn't go away. It changes, but it doesn't go away. Reality is real. Anytime we avoid it, anytime we fight against it, anytime we ignore it, we're just putting that off for later. I'll give a few examples here. If a drug addict avoids the reality of their drug addiction and chooses to fight it a later day, just putting off that reality, just avoiding that reality, and not facing it is just going to make it worse in the long run, especially with drug addiction. Same thing with many other situations in life. Not to be so serious, we'll move on to a little bit more lighthearted stuff like sports. For some people, sports is huge, and so I'll give a few ways that I avoid reality when it comes to sports. Number one, I avoid reality when I think that wrestling should be so much more popular than it really is. Wrestling isn't popular right now. That's real. I'm not making any judgments. I love this sport, but just that's how I fight reality, was when I think it should, because it's not. Same thing with soccer. I think that soccer players should stop flopping, but they do. And that's real. No judgments. It's just reality. And then another one is I think everyone should think the same things I think about sports psychology, mental training. But a lot of people don't. And that's just a reality I have to accept, because that's how it is. Hope you guys start seeing how in life we fight against so many things that are reality. We fight against, I won't even give examples because it could take quite some time. But I'll give you some keywords. Some things that we say a lot that indicate that we are fighting reality. So number one is should. Whenever people say should, that they are fighting reality. Okay? Like I just said, my 3 examples. Wrestling should be more popular. Soccer players should stop flopping. And sports psych, people should think the same things I think about sports psychology. It's just not the way. It's just not how it is. Okay? The other one is I wish. Whenever we wish for things, it's because it's not how reality is, unless we're wishing for reality. When we make wishes, when we say should, those are just fighting against reality. And again, the reason why this is so important is because when we fight against reality, we are just wasting time. We're just prolonging the suffering, prolonging doing something, acting. It's just that stuff. All of the stuff that we could do to actually change reality is put aside so that we can avoid it. And unfortunately, that's just what happens, and not a lot of people do it. Now, let's talk about 3 strategies we can implement to overcome this. Okay? Number one is to start accepting and embracing reality. Even the cold, hard reality that life is tough, things just sometimes don't work out the way we want them to. Maybe we're not as good as we thought we were. But as we embrace that reality, we start realizing that there are things we can do about it. Okay? Embrace and accept your reality. Number 2 is the way things are is the way that things will always stay unless and only unless you focus on actually changing who you are and being the change that you want to see. And I know that that comes from a very famous quote, be the change you wish to see in the world. And as corny as that sometimes may seem, or as overused as it is definitely true. We can always be pointing out I wish it was different. I wish this should be different. People shouldn't do that. But guess what? That's what's happening. That's real. And the only way that we can actually start making changes is first, like I said, accepting and embracing that reality. But then to start to focus on making the change first within ourselves and then helping implement that and inspiring and influencing others to make those same changes. Now, number 3 is by asking yourself a very simple question, and that is, what is real? If you ask yourself in those situations, ask yourself what is real, what's going to happen is you're going to separate yourself from strong and negative emotions. You're going to start realizing that, hey, this is real. And that starts to empower you to do something about it. Because when we realize that things are just the way they are, and they are the way they are, then we start seeing our role in changing. We start seeing our role in what we can do to help things change. Always make sure that you are controlling what you can control. If you're forcing, if you're making people do things, then you're doing it wrong. Control yourself first. Change yourself first. And then let that inspire and influence people to make their own change. Avoiding reality is the biggest mistake that you can ever make. It's the biggest waste of time you can ever make. I'll see you next time.